Speaking freedom, giving you the answers to be free. Be free.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's performance is about to begin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Speaking Freedom TV. In today's episode of Life of a Veteran, we are introducing you to Mr. Kurt. Hey, Kurt, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Dr. Casey.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm a kind of an old guy. I'm 75 years old, born in South Dakota, so I know what cold weather's like. But I kept moving south to Colorado and then out here to California. I have a degree in engineering from South Dakota Tech in Rapid City, South Dakota. And it's there that I went through the ROTC program and came out as a member of the Corps of Engineers. From Rapid City, I moved to Colorado after my brief period as an active duty second lieutenant. At the end of the Vietnam War, it was very difficult to stay in the military at that time. They were trying to release everybody, so I was put into the reserves. I was in Colorado for about 12 years. I got a second degree in mathematics education from Colorado State University. I've been in Riverside, about 40, 50 miles east of Los Angeles for the last 38 years. And I'm not moving. I don't care how bad the regulations get. I'm not shoveling that snow anymore.
I know that's right. So, what made you join the military and what branch did you say you were in?
The United States Army. I was a poor kid looking for a way to get through college, and ROTC was a very helpful way of financing my education. So I was in ROTC for the 4 years, undergraduate work,
Mm-hmm.
and that sent me off shortly thereafter to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and the Engineer Officer's Basic Course.
So, you went and you started out as an officer. How was that experience while being around enlisted soldiers?
Well, we had to spend one summer in Fort Riley, Kansas, where
What
we
was
were
that
making,
for, Riley? What a coinkydink.
oh, yeah, well, that was a long, long time ago. I got treated like an enlisted man.
Mm,
So it was a very, very good experience, actually. War games, the whole thing.
mm-hmm.
So from there, of course, then I finished up the ROTC in 71 and through 72, January through about July of 72, I was in Fort Belvoir, Virginia for the EOBC course. And as I said earlier, this was at the end of the Vietnam War. It was during what they call the Vietnamization of the war,
Mm-hmm.
and they were releasing second lieutenants.
Mm,
So had I wanted to go full time, I wouldn't have been able to go in anyway.
mm.
An unusual time in America when you couldn't go in.
That's what I was thinking. So, what did you like most about your military experience?
Oh, the rigor, the discipline. I learned more discipline in the military than I learned anywhere else, even though I was an officer at Fort Belvoir and didn't have any troops under me until, say, the last month. Um, I spent a lot of time receiving orders and responding to the discipline of within the military. And I don't know of anybody who's come out of the military who didn't say that was a good experience. Um, from a lot of American kids, they don't have a lot of discipline coming up through
Mm-hmm.
their childhood. I at least came from a unified family. I had a mother and a father my entire life. I know kids today It's almost the
Unheard of.
majority of the kids don't have a father and a mother in the same home. So the
I mean,
military,
sometimes they don't even have a father and a mother at all. With so much is going on in the world with when you talk about healthcare, and being able to maintain their health for a long time, and then with drugs and different type of addictions. I actually, as a person that didn't have either parent that was very present in my life during my early years, although um it's kind of, it varies, but as somebody that didn't have supervision all the time, um I have learned that a lot of people don't have the proper supervision. Even when they have two parents in their home, if they're both always working, then they're not even there to
wow. Uh, Dr. Casey, can you imagine this? I grew up in South Dakota, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and for all my elementary years of schooling, the bell rang at 11:30. We put on our overshoes and we all walked home because everybody's mother was at home
hmm
cooking lunch for the
hmm
kids. All my friends, except one, I'm talking about dozens of my friends, all had moms at home at lunch.
hmm
It wasn't too long ago I went back to South Dakota and I was sad to see that my grade school had been torn down and they built another school. But I recognized later, hey, that old school didn't have a cafeteria. It didn't have a place to feed the kids.
hmm
It had to be torn down and get a more,
modernized.
well,
Mhm. So, what did you like least about your military experience?
uh,
Going to Kansas?
yes. That was a tough place in the summer, boy. It,
Oh, in the winter too.
oh
Near
yeah.
the tornado season.
They always put us through the mill in the summertime, which was my preference is heat over cold.
Hmm.
You get a lot of that. I think that one of the things that stood out to me, because I heard this said to me more than once when I was in Fort Belvoir. The first time I drove onto the fort, I noticed all these two-story brick frame buildings, and they went on and on and on and on. And I heard this, as I said, more than once. The shingle said major, colonel, captain, major, colonel, captain, and this is what I heard. They're all waiting for the next war because that's the only way they're going to get promoted.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how accurate that was, but I know I heard it often. And remember, this was a time when we were actually going to be at peace
Hmm.
for, say, the next, I don't know, 5, 6 years. We weren't engaged in a major conflict anywhere on the planet. And I was wondering how many of these people are just stuck. They can't move up. They're not gonna be able to get from major to colonel.
Yeah, without a war, sometimes I don't know if we realize how war is used. And not, I don't think for the purposes that you would think that war would be used, but all of the politics and bureaucracy that's behind it.
Uh, Dr. Casey, have you ever heard of the book War is a Racket?
No, but I'm gonna look it up.
I mean, this is General Smedley Butler, the most decorated officer in the history of the United States up until I think World War II. He engaged in all these many conflicts, and at the end of it, he writes the book in which he basically says war is the only marketplace where the profits are measured in money, dollars, and the losses in lives.
Hmm.
And he was adamantly opposed to American conflicts after being involved in them for 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
That's a one. I'm writing a book. It's entitled Officer Hanson, Compassion in Blue. And I mention Smedley's Butler's book in my book because I want people to be aware of this book. By the way, it's a booklet. It's not a book. It's
Right.
short, it's short, but it's powerful.
Mm-hmm. I laugh when you said it's a booklet and not a book because a lot of times, especially nowadays, you see little booklets like they're books, but they're just not like novels or more than 100 pages. So that made me chuckle a little bit. What was your biggest takeaway from the military?
Um, I think the thing that I remember the most was the esprit de corps among the enlisted men, the way we looked out for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't care what color the person
Mm-mm.
is next to you. You only care whether they can do their job
Mm-hmm.
well, because your life is tied up to him. In that case, it was only him. There weren't any hers back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we were blowing up bridges. I mean, the Corps of Engineers, you're building something or you're blowing something up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't have people, I didn't see the prospect down the line of anybody shooting at me.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, when we were at Fort Belvoir, we had to work a lot of team things. And the military was trying to instill within everybody that you're a member of a team. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to work together. That's the purpose, one of the purposes of bringing you together in this unit. This platoon is dependent upon each person doing their job well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do, there's a sense of pride and accomplishment that you don't get. I played football. It was somewhat kind of similar to that,
Mm-hmm.
but
It's still different.
it wasn't as rigorous 24/7.
Hmm. I think that one of the things that's missing, and I hate to say this publicly or out loud, because a lot of people are afraid and intimidated by a draft, but when the draft was established, it had some negative effects, like life, but it established discipline for a lot more people. So what I see when I look out into the world, I see where the draft stopped and people started getting wilder and wilder and wilder because they stopped having institutionalized discipline and instruction that forced people to learn how to prioritize, learn cleanliness, and learn all of the key skills that you need, especially teamwork. If civilians as a whole just could learn teamwork, we would get so much further.
Well, are you aware of the Swiss model?
Mm-mm.
Oh, this is right up your line then. Because you see, in Switzerland, you're part of they don't call them counties, but city and county governments basically have their militia. And if you are 18 years of age, I don't know about women, they may have included women now, but I know 18 and above up to, I think, 50 years of age, you're in the militia and you train. When my friend Scott was going to go to Europe, I said, "We're going to go to Switzerland?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then check out their military for me because I heard these stories."
Mm-hmm.
Well, he came back with a story that blew me away because he said he put his jacket up in the closet and he looked over there and there was a bazooka in the closet. He was staying in the home of a bazooka man.
And that's a big gun.
Yeah. And when he was called for practice or their their duty station, they were instant moving to where they had to be. And the military in Switzerland basically trained the militia. So if you were 18 years of age, a male, you were assigned a gun. Everybody had guns.
Hmm.
they have shooting contests.
Hello?
Of guns.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So in Switzerland, you're in the military when you hit 18, and you go through regular training, and you can't imagine how well this has worked over the last 60, 70 years because uh, Germany under Hitler decided we're not going in there because they had every entrance into Switzerland ready to be detonated.
Mm.
Then if the Germans started moving in, they wouldn't go very far before all the bridges were out.
Hmm.
And there'd be, they've got, um, they've got huts up on the hill that look like regular huts.
But they probably stakeout areas. We're having technical difficulties, everyone. But give Mr. Kirk a second. All right, y'all, we got Mr. Kirk back. So, what was the transition like getting out of the military and what made you get out?
Well, I had no choice. They
Oh,
were,
because you said that they didn't need you no more.
they didn't need anybody anymore. We weren't going to have any more second lieutenants walking in the rice paddies. Uh, Unfortunately, that's why I went into the Corps of Engineers. I didn't want to walk in rice paddies.
Right.
I'd rather blow up bridges than do that. In any case, uh, July of 72, I was released and put into the reserves for the next 8 years. And my summer experiences were usually in Albuquerque, a couple of times up in Oregon, and quite frankly, kind of a waste of time. Definitely a waste of federal money. I didn't accomplish very much. It was just something that they put me through, and I had a requirement. Now, I'll tell you what, I'm very happy now, being 75 years old and being actually engaged in the military during a time of war, because there's a lot of benefits that have come my way that I had no idea would be
Mhm.
coming 50 years ago when I was in the military.
Now, the one thing that you said about Switzerland and the militia, all of those things, I think it sets for a solid background. So when
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaci, not your typical clinical doctor. I am an ordained minister, but not your typical minister. I am also a certified life coach, love coach, sex coach, solution focused coach, transformation coach, and more. I have a whole lot of information that I would like to help you grow with. And I hope that soon I can help you be the best you that you can be. Confidence, spirituality, and purpose. That's wholeness, complete.
when you tell me that, and then I think about the amount of violence that we have here versus the amount of violence that they have other places, but most of those places literally have some type of military training that everybody has to go through at some point in order to be a citizen almost. It's better than quoting the American Legion. I mean the Star Spangled Banner or pledging the American Legion.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But the thing I think is even more important or more of a that has led to the violence in the United States is that just think about it, over the last 50 years, how many years have we not had our men and women engaged in conflict? No other nation on the face of the earth has been involved in more conflicts than the United States. And I think it's deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
These guys come home, especially like during Vietnam, because even though I didn't go over there, I had friends that were in Vietnam. And unlike any other war, they were coming home and they were being despised. They were being spit upon. They were being treated like dirt. And most of them didn't want to go in the first place.
Right.
I lost some of my best friends from playing baseball as a young kid. They never came home alive. They came home in a body bag, but they were gone. Now, our troops come home today, and most Americans can't tell you where Afghanistan is. They don't know
Mm.
anything about Iraq. But here, these guys have been suffering all these deployments, and they come back to a country that basically is ignorant and apathetic and indifferent to what they went through. It's like, what was I there for? Why
Yeah.
was I
I
there?
think that it is a travesty that Americans don't know what PTSD is, and they have so many assumptions, negative assumptions on the truth of PTSD when mostly people need to realize that it's just the way you handle stress when you feel like your back is against the wall. And everybody honestly has some form of PTSD from their childhood, growing up, maybe losing a relative or something. But largely, when you ask civilians about PTSD, they bring up all of the negative things, all of the, most outlandish stories and cases where it's extreme versus the day-to-day things that people go through and deal with as a veteran and as somebody that has been in war or struggles with PTSD from the effects of war.
I could not agree with you more. There's it's that sad situation that they come home and they have very few people they can talk to. In World War II engulfed the entire nation. Vietnam even. We lost 50,000 men over there. It was on everybody's lips. Unfortunately, it came across as very negative.
Hmm.
But these modern wars, ever since 9/11, 24 years of persistent warfare, and most Americans really don't know what's going on. And unless they've got a loved one over there directly, they don't really care. Because we know, as much as George W. wanted to make us think that those weapons of mass destruction are going to be a real threat to us, it wasn't true.
Right.
It wasn't true.
So, would you recommend the military for a family member or relative?
Um, well, no, the Coast Guard, I said, yeah, I'd go to the Coast Guard all the way. That's the right kind of military where you're defending your country. I believe in defending our country, not being involved in all these escapades around the globe. So if you could find a operational mode that could keep you stateside, primarily involved in defense of the mainland, I would say yes, because the military's got so many great benefits.
It really does.
And as long as we keep getting engaged in all these conflicts around the world, it's not a place that I want my sons to go.
And that's totally understandable. I definitely believe that as a country, our government, um they're just too nosy. They too damn nosy. They want to be in everybody's business. They want to control everything, and that's what really sends us in the war. Every time somebody else has a problem, we are off to the rescue, but nobody really rescues us.
Right. Hey, I got another book for you.
Okay.
John Perkins wrote the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and how John Perkins went about in Panama, one country in Africa, where he basically went in as an operative for a major corporation, international corporation, but he's working with the CIA and the World Bank. And he went in and he would get to the the leaders of the country, and sell them, if bribery was necessary, a project like for a new hydroelectric dam in eastern Ecuador. They don't really need one, but we wanted to drill for oil there. International corporations wanted to drill for oil there, so they needed a hydroelectric plant. So it was sold to the Ecuadorian people that this was going to be a benefit, and the return on investment would be 7 or 8%. John Perkins knew it wouldn't possibly be more than 3%. The end result was that 15, 25 years later, Ecuador is defaulting on the loan.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'll be quick, but he said, if I was not successful, then they sent in the jackal. Dr. Kaci, what do you think of jackal?
I have no clue. I was definitely about to ask.
Okay. A jackal is somebody who goes in and assassinates who needs to go out of the way.
Mm.
Uh, when Carter was dealing, you remember in Panama, that whole thing, there was a nationalist down there, his name was Torrijos, and he had basically said, make Panama great again. He was not going to go for bribes. He was going to stand strong for Panamanian interests. They couldn't bribe him. He died mysteriously in a plane crash.
Sure. Listen, they had a job opening at the CDC. Hey, CDC, if you're listening to this, we all good, but I just doing work for you. And I was like, I would not dare want to work for the CDC. Too many people come up missing or deceased after working for that company. And I just think that I think it's more safe if you don't work in certain places.
If the jackals don't work, Dr. Kaci, they send in the military. They couldn't bribe Saddam Hussein. They couldn't kill him. He was too smart. He had people who looked just like him, and
Hmm.
the security around him was too tight. So they had to go in with the military to get rid of him. We sent our military in to get that guy out of the way so that our corporate interests could be fulfilled in Iraq. And how many men have we lost there? And what destruction we've done to Iraq?
Hmm. As an Iraqi Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran, I've definitely seen the destruction with my own hands. Um and it is really crazy to have been there, to have known that there is really no weapons of mass destruction, and that, we were kind of just there, I would say in a stronghold, in a war of governments, more than a war of people. Now, of course, terrorist cells exist, but I think when you poke the terrorist cell, they're more likely to seek to retaliate and to cause havoc. So it was eye-opening experience to be in Iraq. I was actually there at the time that they caught Saddam, and it was something, I tell you. War is something. It's not what they make it look like on TV, but it's definitely dangerous, of course. And it is something that wouldn't necessarily wish on anyone. But I definitely think that military experience can be a perk to those who are able to take advantage of it.
Exactly. And in my book, Officer Hanson, I actually bring my character into the battle for Haditha Dam. And that was the only major conflict of the Iraqi war.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, a staggering toll. We lost three of our men by way of a suicide bomber. A woman who was pregnant blew herself up, took three of our troops. The Iraqis lost 300 men and 50 tanks because we were technologically overwhelming them.
Mm-hmm.
The, and the irony, or the sad irony, is that they found out later that the Iraqis were trying to save the dam because they had been told that the Americans wanted to blow it up and destroy Haditha, the city below it. The Americans went in, we went in with the idea of saving the dam as a way to get into the northern part of Iraq. So both armies were fighting for the same purpose, to save the dam.
Yeah. But the with the way even today we see the way the media um pits people against each other. They take the smallest amount of information and use it on both sides and just make war, they make destruction, they create narratives that create conflict. So let me ask you this last question. What kind of advice would you give current active duty troops and or new veterans?
Well, the same attitude that my hero in my book had. He had this great esprit de corps with the men and the women that he was working with. And these people are going to be your closest friends probably for the rest of your life
Mm-hmm.
because they know you better than maybe even your parents. And when you've been in the heat of a battle and that guy over there saved your life or allowed you to live longer, um, just I just say my do your job well.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't make the decisions that necessarily got you in the situation you're in. Do honor unto your country and to God as best you can. Uh, but also try to be, especially after you're out, share your experience with people who don't have a clue. I think too many military people, they just keep it to themselves. And I know there's a lot of ignorant people out there, but they need to hear what you've got to say.
Mm-hmm.
And our leaders, whether in church leaders and corporates, we need to hear the stories of the men and the women who served our country because they've got a tremendous amount of knowledge to pass on to us.
I definitely agree. So tell us where we can find your, well, when you're going to publish your book, and then where we can find your book and where we can find you if we wanted to follow you.
Okay, I have a link. It's called Affidavit Secrets.com / Kaci, Kaci. I'll say it again, Affidavit Secrets.com / Kaci. Now, this gives you a link to my book, and there's a lot of military information in my book. And if you'll go there and you'll allow us to have your uh, phone number so we can send you what we call executive summaries of each of the chapters of the book, because this book has a lot to do with how to deal with violence rather than dealing with violent people. I've learned that if we can disarm violent situations, we won't have to disarm violent people so often.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what my book's about. My hero is in the military for a good 10 chapters, maybe 15. There's a lot of military insights in my book.
So we will have the link. You're going to send me the link so I can put it in the caption. I
Oh,
mean, okay.
you
So
can
as
do
long
it now.
Okay, so everyone, you will be able to have access to the link. We will make sure that it is down below. So make sure you click the link so you can get access to Mr. Kirk's book. And again, I thank you, Mr. Kirk, for being on the show. It was great talking to you. I love wisdom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaci.
All right, everybody. This has been another episode of Life of a Veteran, and see you next time. Bye.
Hi, I'm Kaci, Dr. Kaci. Welcome to Speaking Freedom. We are happy to have you, and we hope that we are able to help you in every way possible. Have a good evening. If you've enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. New episode every Friday.